Hi guys, welcome to my most favorite day of the week, and it really is because of you. And I want you to think about this a little bit, because have you ever thought of your money kind of like a melting ice cube? Because most people think that, oh, dollars are safe and there is no problems. But what if I told you that that was really not the case? And recently, I've been talking quite a bit about stablecoins. And the reason why I'm talking so much about it is because I could be wrong, but having been studying currency and currency life cycles as they make these transitions, I'm telling you, there isn't even one teeny weeny doubt in my mind, but that these stable coins will be used to usher in the hyperinflation. Now, you've heard me say that before, but look at this report from the Federal Reserve. There's a couple things I want to point out here. Number one, isn't it interesting that they're depicting dollars as a gold coin, just like cryptocurrencies are depicted as a gold coin? Why? Because they want you to feel safe in them, but the reality is they are not safe. So this is a new report from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, and it's a very interesting report. Let's see, is this working? Yes, it is. Okay. So first of all, we know that foreign buyers have turned away from buying our bonds. And that is a huge problem, not just for the U.S., but that's a huge problem for the world, because that's the foundation of the system. Now, I would like to point out, and as you can see, there are three red lines here. Up to that, 2008 was kind of a smooth market, right? But then they started to transition out of the traditional holders of Treasury bonds, which were banks and foreign governments, and they had to get more creative. This is not something that is just happening now. I think this chart depicts very, very well the transition in the buyers of the Treasury market. And that's one of the reasons that stablecoins are so important and also so dangerous. But you can see how this transition changed and shifted from the traditional buyers to the non-traditional buyers. The traditional would be long-term holders. Now we're going into shorter and shorter term. This is the estimated ownership of Treasury securities, and you can see that stable coins are about $125 billion market through December of 2024. Okay, $125 billion. I want you to keep that in mind, because what they're anticipating is tremendous growth. And what they're really talking about, stablecoins could increase Treasury demand, but here's the problem. Only by reducing demand for other assets, meaning bank deposits, etc. So let's just take a look at this, because Wall Street's huge flip from the banks that were Jamie Dimon, oh, this is a pet rock, this is awful, no, we're not going to do it. And then all of a sudden, we've had this massive rush into the stablecoin markets by these same banks that have just taken it over. The reversal risks declawing, and we're going to explain this, a century of consumer financial protections and replacing the backbone of bank accounts, which what they're talking about is stable coins are not FDIC insured. Now, not that that really, frankly, means a whole lot anyway, since they have barely more than 1 penny for every dollar's worth of insured deposits. Forget the uninsured deposits. But that's what they're talking about. Those consumer financial protections, I'm going to show you even more into this, what they're talking about here. But replacing the backbone of bank accounts, what is that? Well, that's your deposit that the banks then lend out and expand the economy. So the concern here is that where that money will go from and into stablecoins are those bank deposits. And that means that there is less out there for the banks to loan into the economy. That's kind of deflationary, don't you think? And let's see. How many ways are there to fight deflation? One. And it's this, right? Now, they're changing the rules, and this is really reminiscent because everybody thinks, well, this time is different. This one is new. It's different. Well, here we go. There are new open banking rules that were written, supposed to go into force, not going into force. They're going to go in and they're going to rewrite them now that the banks are all part of this stablecoin and the surveillance movement. So we'll see whose benefit these rules are being written in. But I wanted to show you this because I came across this. I was reading in one of the articles, and they referenced the old Wildcat times and how similar and the parallels in there. And I thought, well, wow, that's kind of interesting. Let's go back and take a look. So this article happens to be all the way back in 1893. They were talking about this even earlier. And what does it say? The old Wildcat times are a racy description of the days when men went to bed rich and woke up penniless. Is that what's going to happen now? 100% yes. Just like it has 4,800 times more than that in the past. But the other part of this article, by this time, the financial affairs of the whole country had become greatly disturbed in consequence of wild and reckless speculation. I don't know. How do you make a mint? You create the wild and reckless speculation. And I'm coming back to that in just a minute, so bear with me on this. But the currency became greatly inflated because these were banks during the Wildcat times. These were banks that were way out in the boondocks. They were nowhere near anything. And you know, I have this. Is this my Confederate? That's my Confederate. This is the one I was looking for. Okay. This happens to be from that period of time. This is a state bank. They didn't even print on the back of it, but the banks were then creating the money. And shockingly, they inflated the monetary system, and then they loaned that out, and that's what generated all of that speculation. So what we're doing here is the repeat, because what these stable coins are is really a free ticket for these corporations, not just banks, but corporations like Amazon and Walmart, take your pick, as well as the banks, to issue their own money. Now, how does that benefit the U.S. government? Well, because they have to be backed in this country 1-to-1 with dollars. And that creates that artificial market for dollars and Treasury debt. You see that? But that money has to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from the banking sector, which is why they fought it. But if you look at the President's Working Group report that lays this foundation, because make no mistake about it, please make no mistake about it, when President Trump signed the Genius Act, he changed the global monetary system. Period. This isn't something I'm waiting for. This is something that's already in place. And now they're writing all of the rules. But they've got the players, the foxes that are in the hen house that are actually writing these rules. The report directs the SEC to develop safe harbors and exemptions, which means that when they screw up, there ain't nothing you can do about it. You remember 2008? And what happened during that period of time was disgusting, was despicable, was horrendous, was evil, was vile, destroyed lives. There are people that still have not recouped, but nobody went to jail. Why? Because as awful as it wasn't illegal, and they're putting all of this language and legalizing this very risky and speculative behavior, and there's nothing you can do. In fact, if the bank decides not to give you your money back, which they have every right to do because it's not really yours, you loaned it to them, it's theirs, they don't have to. And there's nothing you can do because they have a safe harbor. So I want you to really understand that this is like the wildcatting days. This is like the Wild West, or the Wild West, tailored to crypto-related activities that are all speculation. They're trying to figure this whole thing out. But that includes security distributions involving digital assets and token airdrops, blah, blah, blah. But it also proposes an innovation exemption to enable new business models. And when those things go south, there is nothing you can do. This is why it's critically important to get your sound money strategy in place and surround yourself with that local community to create that surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get it done. These things are already unfolding. They are already happening. This isn't the future. This is current. And so just to reiterate, that's how important this little passage is. They have developed, their job is to develop safe harbors so you have no recourse and exemptions. No recourse. They can do anything they want. They can crash the entire system. They can hyperinflate the entire system. All of the wealth that you put in there can evaporate, and there is nothing you can do. Do you see that? I really hope you do, because it's happening. What have you done? You've got to make sure that you can live a reasonable standard of living. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do these innovative exemptions for all these new business models. We'll test them on the public. That's just about right. And look, we're flying blind. We are flying blind. When Doge came in, I mean, I questioned all of the data anyway, because whenever the government or the central banks don't like how data looks, they don't change behavior, they change formulas. So how this information is given to you, and then you're supposed to believe it. But we know that once Doge came in, boy, they just willy-nilly just slashed everything. And so as bad as the information was that you were getting before, quite honestly, it's even worse now. And basically, they're saying, well, we've got to do this because of what's going on, and we're not getting good data, blah, blah, blah. The reality is that President Trump is a change agent. And they need a change agent in here because there is virtually no purchasing power left in the currencies. And we are transitioning, resetting, if you will, into that new system. And we can all sit back and let them do whatever the hey they want to do. Or you can take a stand. And this is the opportunity that I see, the best opportunity, frankly, that I've ever seen to take our power back. That is taking that community to a global level so that we can get redeemable sound money back in the system again. And if we don't do it, the future for our children and our children's children is not really one that I personally want to pass down to my family. I think it's absolutely disgusting that I had more choices and more opportunities than my grandchildren have. I think that's disgusting, and I want to reverse that. And that's why we fight so hard and become part of this sound money movement, because that's the best shot that they have. We have to. There's no more important reason to do it. And that's also why the central banks have been accumulating gold. And remember, it's so diversified because it has the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of demand. If we allow the surveillance economy to take hold, I don't even like to think about that, but we have to, because we can't ignore it. That's not going to change what happens. It's you and I that are going to change it. We have the power. There's 8.4 billion people on this planet. There are so many more of us than there are of those of the 1%. There's 99% of us, and there's 1% of them. And the way that we do it is by converting our fiat into physical gold and silver, into sound money. That is the only financial instrument that runs no counterparty risk. These stable coins, do you see that what they're talking about is, hey, how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to take the money that you have in your savings account and your checking account, and you're going to convert them into stable coins, whether they're at JP Morgan or at Walmart. Doesn't really matter. And that means that you're taking out of the system the fractional reserve, right? It's like when we had power and we didn't like what we saw the government's doing, we went in and we pulled gold from the system, and that's how we had our power. Now, what they're talking about with the stable coins is they're moving all of this money creation from here to here. And that means that there is less to go out there lending to the economy. And so how do you fight that deflation? Because that's highly deflationary. Well, yeah, create inflation. And that, my friends, is the hyperinflation. And it's already begun. Make no mistake about it. It's legalized. Now they're just rushing to fine tune and finish off everything. And we need to be rushing to lay in that sound money strategy. And you know, it's really good, because we were looking at some of the questions are absolutely that we got today. I didn't look at all the questions, but there were a couple that Josh put up there. And so we're going to go to the questions now. It's absolutely perfect. And we're going to do a few different things, and you let us know how we're doing and then what else you would want. But I need to remind you that I will be gone to Malaysia. I think we leave on the 12th of September, and I'll be back on the 1st of October. I will be doing some things from there, but I'm really excited that Emerald Fox will be sitting in for me on the Q&As. So I want you to, come and support her as well. But because it'd be 3 o'clock. We checked. It'll be 3 o'clock in the morning in order for me to do them. And some of you may recall that I did that when we went to Australia, and the lighting was bad and the sound was bad. And, I did it anyway because of my commitment to you. And it's so important to me. So I really appreciate, Emerald's being here and doing that, as well as the support that you would give her. And now I will go directly to the questions, because Diane and David asked, Lynette, I came across the new SSA ruling EM25046. It really concerns me, even scares me, that Big Brother is watching every move. Am I understanding this correctly, that they will eventually look at everything? No, that's already legalized as of August 1st. So they are looking at everything. that I have in my bank account and what my family has to make sure that I am not receiving funds from them, because if they see funds from any family member, then they will be looking at their bank accounts as well. If I am gifted a birthday present and it is sent to my account via Zelle, they then could lower the amount I receive in my monthly check. Or if I have something of value that I can sell, they will be able to force me to do so. Please tell me I have listened to this video and my assumptions are wrong. I would love to tell you that your assumptions are wrong, but they are not wrong. And this has actually been, it's two things. Number one, it's been a long time in coming. Josh, can you put up the chart on the deficits in the Social Security system? Because, okay, what you're looking at here is, in the beginning, the Social Security system is a pay-as-you-go. So in the very beginning, which would have been back in the 30s, there were 158 workers for every recipient. So all of that excess went into the system, and then, okay, our government borrowed that money. So you can see that it was already in before 2010, when we were running deficits. We did not have enough money in the Social Security system to pay out all of the beneficiaries. And the data is not super current that you can even get on that. But the most recent time that I checked, instead of that 158 workers for every beneficiary, there were 2.8 workers for every beneficiary. Now, you think about rising unemployment, that creates even more stress. So they have to figure out a way to reduce having to put all of those benefits out, because you might think of them as your right because you've paid into it your whole life. But quite honestly, it is an entitlement, and I'm going to show you that in just a second as well. But this is a very important graph, because what? They say the trust fund will be insolvent, so they're able to finagle it. That's all deficit spending below that line. All that red, that's deficit spending in Social Security. Yeah, they have to reduce that to try and elongate this game, because that's what it is. It's just a big fat lie. Can you pull up that other piece from the Social Security Administration? Because this is something that people really do not understand at all. But this is directly from the Social Security Administration when it was questioned, because they thought, the public thought that this was, it's called an entitlement, but the government has no legal obligation to pay this out. And it was tested in court. And guess who won? The Social Security Administration. And that also means that they can change anything that they want to at any time. So what they've done and where they're testing it is in the most vulnerable group. So those 65 and older that probably are not paying as much attention to what's going on, and certainly don't have the means and typically the wherewithal to take on the Social Security Administration. So they're starting there, but they have every intention of expanding this program. And it's certainly not like you think that the government can't go in and look at everything that you're doing in any of your bank accounts. I mean, these are banks that are part of the Federal Reserve System after all. But make no mistake, this is really where they're starting to put in that full surveillance mechanism. And so, yeah, there's going to be glitches and there's going to be problems, but they're starting in a small group. And yeah, if you receive a gift, and remember, you know, if you have cash, that's still, if somebody's going to give you cash, like when my mom was alive, Every week, I would make a deposit of a few $100 into her account, and I would also bring her $100 in cash. And that was a day when $100 in cash actually kind of meant something. She's been gone now since 2010, so for 15 years. Well, if I did that with her right now, yep, that's going to impact they're going to change things. Right? And they're going to cut off benefits because that's what they're looking to do. And this is the least visible and way to do it, rather than going in and have Congress change everything visibly and have this huge discussion. No, they're just going in and they're going to surveil everything. And it's already done. It's not, again, none of this is what we're waiting for. It's just for the public to know about it because there's distance. Governments and central banks and any of these agencies, they want distance between their policies and how it's introduced. And they test this just like with the bail-in laws. Where did they test those? Oh, Cyprus, a little country far away, so that people go, oh, that's just over there. That is not going to happen here. Well, where are they testing this? They're testing this in the smallest and most vulnerable group. And they say in here that this will expand. And they also say that this testing and this looking at your bank accounts are going to be on a constant basis. So can you kind of see why it's really important? The Zang strategy, the sound money strategy, I've told you this, it's built in layers. And part of those layers is cash outside of the system. Another part can certainly be gold backs is part of that cash position. You're going to need some money outside of the system. Then we go to silver, and we then go to fractional gold. Can you see the writing on the wall? Because it really is pretty crappy. But yeah, it is full surveillance. It went in place August 1st. It's already done, and they have to do it because there's no money in there. They're running deficits, which means they have to pull that fund to send out those benefits from elsewhere. And when I had to apply for Social Security, I didn't have any choice. I didn't want to do it because I didn't really want them in any of my business, but I didn't have a choice. Well, I guess now they'll make that choice for me. And yeah, they will be reducing your benefits, and it's already in place. So I'd like to say your assumptions are wrong, but no, they're not. This is the test of the full surveillance economy. Be ready. And the stablecoins, you can see how much they're moving to this. And I'm hoping that you can see how when you want to buy something from Amazon or Walmart or anywhere else, that is this corporate ability to create money out of thin air, just like they did in the Wildcat days. Right? Just like they did in 1914 by converting corporate debt into Federal Reserve notes. This is a tried and true practice. You need to be smarter than that. You have to have your sound money strategy and your community in place. You have to be as independent and self-sufficient as you possibly can. Become your own central bank. I mean, the handwriting's on the wall. And low blood pressure asks, I got dual citizenship. Can IRS come after foreign accounts? Actually, yes, they can. And inside of this, yes, they can. They can look at any bank account anywhere in the world that's not just attached to you, but it could even extend to your family members. So, yeah. Do you see why it's that important to get sound money back in the system again? Because they just keep taking more and more and more and more and more control. How do you catch a wild hog? Right? You wait. All of these promises on these stable coins and what they'll do to get you in the ecosystem, and people will just walk into it blindly. Not me, not you, if you're watching. We've got to get redeemable gold back in the system, or this is the life. What you're looking at right here, this is going to be true for everything. Governments want to do lifetime taxes. Corporations want to pay you less and less until absolutely you're getting paid nothing. But then you got to spend that on their products. How about saying no? How about just saying no? And it's so peaceful and easy to do. This is what you do. And Selenian02 asks, so who is they that is able to look at individuals' bank accounts? This is the Social Security Administration. That's who they are. Can they also see all transactions? Yes, they can. And it's not just Social Security. This is the Social Security Administration is the one that is doing this. But quite honestly, do you really think that you have any level of privacy of anything that you have or do inside of the system, whether it's on the internet or in your bank account? And I don't know, if they meaning the central banks or anybody that you might owe money to, I mean, the IRS can freeze your accounts. And they don't even really need to give you any warning. And all of a sudden, that's happened to me. I mean, not thank God in a very long time. But if you have one account or you have multiple accounts that they attack, guess what? You're locked out of the system. We certainly saw what Canada did to the trucker strike, and anybody that even donated $5 to them. Boy, they were shut out of their accounts. That's what this is a practice test run about. That's what this is. And they're putting pretty much everything is already in place. So yeah, that's who they are. And yes, they can see all transactions. And Robert J. asks, I realize that no one has a crystal ball, but I hear a lot of talk about revaluation. And I'm wondering, what's the best way to take advantage of that if and when that happens? Okay, so I'll ask that. I'll read the whole question, then we'll go back. If confiscation happens, will it be before revaluation? I hear you talk a lot about the pre-33 collectible coins. Will those go up in value by the same amount if there is a revaluation? All right, so there's a number of questions in here. I'm going to take every one at a time. I do have a crystal ball, but it's kind of foggy. And there is a lot of talk about revaluation. Number one, every single central bank has a gold revaluation account. And that enables them to revalue dollars against gold, which is really what inflation does anyway. But yes, ultimately, gold and dollars will be that overnight revaluation. But isn't inflation a form of constant revaluation? The difference is the speed of that revaluation. That's why that 2% target that central banks have on inflation is so critically important, because you don't notice it if it happens slowly. You do notice it when it happens overnight. So, the best way to take advantage of that is to have physical gold in your possession, and silver as well. But gold is the primary currency metal. This is what they do the revaluation against. Silver is the secondary monetary metal, right? So the way that you take advantage of it is you position into gold, which takes me into that next question. If confiscation happens, will it be before revaluation? 100%. 100%. And by the way, this is really what they did in this country. They did it in 33 by revaluing gold from $20.67 an ounce, where it was fixed, to $35 an ounce in 33. And then they did it twice in the 70s, right? So Nixon took us off the gold standard, right? So they confiscate, back in 33, they confiscated the gold, then they did the revaluation. In 1971, they eliminated foreign governments' ability to convert dollars into gold. And then in December, they did the first revaluation, which went from $35 an ounce to $38 an ounce. And then in 1973, they did a second revaluation of roughly 10% to that $42.22, which is where the official U.S. Gold stands now. So did you realize that they did that revaluation in 33 after the confiscation? And kind of by so that was when citizens no longer had the right to hold more than 5 ounces of gold. That's not entirely true, but that's the way the public understood it. Now going into this in the 70s, they devalued the dollar over 20% in a very short period of time. Why was there all that inflation, that 45% inflation during that period of time? So, yes, they do the confiscation or eliminate your ability, then they do the revaluation. So even though they disallowed foreign countries to convert their dollars into gold in 71, in August of 71, they didn't actually allow us to own gold again until after the revaluations, because otherwise what good would it have done them, right? So yeah, it happens after the confiscation happens before the revaluation. I might have just said that wrong there for a second. No, confiscation always happens before the revaluation because that's how they steal the rest of your purchasing power. The pre-33 collectible coins, the reason why I do that is because my Uncle Al was sitting on at least 3,000 ounces of gold, the only legal way that it was to hold it, and that was the pre-33s. And frankly, those laws are still on the books. And so, this makes up less than 2% of all the gold coins that are out there. And you cannot go back to prior to 1933 and create these coins again. So I do it this way because, number one, 100% clear on what the true fundamental value of dollars are, which is zero, and also what gold is today, and that's somewhere in the vicinity of 40,000, right? So as long as I don't spend more than $40,000 or $33,000 on a coin, then I don't really care, because I want the kind of gold that I can have and use in the normal marketplace. Because I have plenty of people that have said to me, well, I just won't turn it in. Well, they're not going to go knocking door to door because there are not enough Americans that actually own physical gold of any consequence, maybe other than a wedding ring or something like that. So I don't think that you really have to worry about them banging on your door and saying, give us your gold. But I do think that where are you going to use it? You're going to have to go in the black market, which will totally pop up. However, you're not going to get full value for it, and you're not going to be able to execute the strategy. So when you hear me talk about the pre-33 coins, imagine for a moment what this would do to the fiat money value of these things if this was the only way, well, jewelry as well, the only way to legally hold gold. And those that are in the know understand this. I mean, look at what central banks are doing to shore up their financial position. They're buying gold hand over fist, right? So, yeah, I do the pre-33 because it's a what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong. I don't have to worry about it. If you're only doing bullion, then you're living on hopium. You are not living on a historic accuracy. And I don't know, history repeats itself. So I like to do something that I don't have to think about it, right? And if you're married to bullion, if you're married to it. I mean, I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what I've done for myself. But if this is the direction that you're most comfortable in, then what I recommend is that you properly diversify your gold holdings so that if I'm right, and if they do an overt confiscation, because they've been confiscating your wealth your whole life, well, this will make up for it, right? So you've got to do what you are comfortable with, regardless of what anybody says, but you always want to have a properly diversified metals portfolio where you're going to hold it, etc. Proper diversification. Don't put all your eggs in the bullion basket. You might find out that that basket has an awful lot of holes in them. And can you raise the questions a little bit? Okay. Mark asks, do you think that countries will pay out on the holders of foreign currency? If yes, what would be the catalyst for the payout? I don't think so. No. I mean, no. I feel that way because historically there is more than 4,800 times precedents where the currencies have gone to zero because that's their fundamental value. And it makes absolutely zero sense, like the Iraqi dinars that a lot of people are holding. Here, this is 25,000 dinars, right? Why in the world would any government re-legalize an old currency and allow all of that wealth to, boom, immediately fly out of the country? They wouldn't. What they do instead is they just create a new dinar, a new dollar, a new euro, a new yen, a new whatever. So historically, no, they would not do it. It makes absolutely zero sense for them to do it and have all that wealth flee the country when the whole point of redenomination is to keep more wealth in the country. And they've never done that before. Never, ever have I ever come across, and I've been studying this stuff since 1987, and maybe on some level, probably my whole life. No, it just doesn't happen. And that's why. And Deb Werner asks, Lynette, I'm checking to see if you're any closer to sending out the document that will help us show all our naysayer friends and family about the truths of gold and silver. And yes, Deb, we approved the design this past week, so we are definitely closer to that. I can't give you an exact date, but I would guess probably not going to want to do that because I'm going to announce it right here. You guys are going to know first, and you're going to have access to it first. So whether or not that happens before I go to Malaysia, I'm thinking we're probably going to want to do it after we get back, just because it'll be easier to manage it. But yes, we've just approved the design, so we are moving forward on that as quickly as we can. And Jeff Hadley asks, did the USA ever confiscate 10K, 14K, 18K? Jewelry. Okay. No, they did not. And that's why you see me wear a lot of jewelry all the time. And that really is, and of course you see this, all my sterling silver stuff, because gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base, and I have it in all different forms. So no, they have not ever, to my knowledge, and I think I would know that, did not ever confiscate jewelry. It's just got a much bigger markup than this stuff. So any way you cut it, gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. And what do you think about wearable gold jewelry investing? If you don't wear it, you don't own it. And you're absolutely right. And again, you see me wear jewelry. I do that because I want to encourage you. Now, is that the most practical way to accumulate it? No, but I started my daughters on gold jewelry. I did it with first a 10 karat ring, and they were 12 at the time. And then since they didn't lose that, then I upped that to 14 karat. And I would give them that every single year. And the reason, and I still do actually, but the reason why I did it was because I knew that wherever they went, if they ever needed money, they had it right there on them. And you know what? That has happened where they've needed money and the only resource that they really had was their gold jewelry. And they used it for that. And that's absolutely fine. So the answer is yes, it's just a more expensive way to do it, but it is certainly another way to do it. And although we have some things in the works on that too. And anyway, we'll come to that. I wish I could clone actually all of us on our team. We've got a really, really, really strong team. And we are all all rowing in the same direction really hard. So, and Deb Werner asks, do you have the written document stating the change in verbiage of the FDIC Fed document? Doing a search shows nothing about the no guarantee of recouping your money of the bank up to $250,000. Well, there is no guarantee. I'm not really sure what you're asking me, Deb. The change in the verbiage, are you talking about the bail-in laws? Because that you'll find from the Bank for International Settlements, so the BIS. And if you go in, it is a whole outline on how they would do that. The FDIC doesn't do that. The FDIC insures it up to a certain point, and you can go into the DIF fund, DIF fund, and they do that on a very regular basis to show you how much they have in insured deposits versus how much is in that account to pay out when a bank goes down. And it's not much of a problem as long as it's an orderly liquidation and not all of them go out at once. But in 2008, they had said that they were one bank failure, small bank failure away from it being obvious. So Deb, were you talking about the bail-in? I'm not really sure what you're asking me. So if you could clarify that, then we'll come back to it. And you also ask, when did Obama rewrite the eminent domain? How do the feds burn off debt? Okay, so let's see. When did Obama do it? I remember when he did that really clearly. Do I know the date of that? I don't know the date of it, but basically he gave the government the right. I can find that if I do a search on it. But he gave the government the right to go into any property. He can walk on my property right now and take all of my vehicles, all of my food. He could take my house. He can take everything. So that was, I don't remember exactly the date, but yeah, he absolutely did. But eminent domain laws have been in place for a very long time, and the government can frankly take anything from you that they want. They just have to pay you fair value, and so they manipulate that fair value, and then they reset or do whatever. And how do the feds burn off debt? The way that they do that is by printing money and devaluing the currency and repaying that debt where the currency has less and less and less value. That is a strategy that we're employing in the sound money strategy as well to pay off your mortgage debt or any other fixed rate debt. So that's how they do it. They just repay that debt with money that has less and less and ultimately zero value. And you are appreciated too, Deb. And thanks. Keep those questions coming. And Miramar asks, do you see stablecoins as a way to prevent citizens from buying gold and silver? I see the stable coin, not, well, yes and no. I mean, the more eyes you get on something, the more people are going to try and participate. With the cryptocurrencies, they allowed them to run up in value. I mean, I'm just not really sure why Bitcoin's worth $120,000 when, other than putting it on a thumb drive and having the ability to take it anywhere in the world. And that's valuable. That is absolutely a valuable feature, make no mistake about it. But is that worth $120,000 a coin? Because what else does it do? So what they do is, the more eyes that are on something, and with the stable coins, you watch. In very short order, the bank's going to have all these wonderful benefits for the stable coins that they're issuing. So is Amazon. So is Walmart. They're going to do whatever they need to do to get you in that ecosystem. Once you're in that ecosystem, it's going to be really hard, if not almost impossible, to get you out. We have to have that hyperinflationary crisis. We have to. I wish we didn't, but we do. And we have to, because there's no value left. The markets are insane. They're severely overvalued. They're going to get even more overvalued. But this is how they do it. They hyperinflate these assets. People think that that has value because they get blinded by numbers, and they don't make smart choices to really get themselves protected at the same time that the global central banks are protecting themselves. So, yeah, it's not a way to prevent citizens, although, yeah, you can say that. You can say that. That's what, I mean, how much more money? Do you think it was really a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March? How much more money, how much more of this crap would have gone into sound money, into this, if Bitcoin didn't exist? So, yeah, you could definitely say that. It really is all about keeping you in the system, no doubt about it. And DL Blue 65 asks, the strategy is built in layers. When you talk about the exit strategy, and the first revaluation is when we pay off the mortgage, is the much talked about gold revaluation that set? Yes, it is. And that will happen when they need to regain public confidence. So that'll be in the hyperinflationary stage, when people are just bloodied and bruised, the public is bloodied and bruised, and they don't trust the money any, don't trust those that are in power, and they need to claw that confidence back. This is why I watch the confidence level so closely, because once it breaks below that bottom level, it's game over. It's game over. And, maybe I'm going to have egg on my face, but, when you go to technicals, they all work the same. And that support level on the bottom is critically important to the hyperinflationary event. So, yes, that is exactly when it is. And Twisted Player 73, can you raise that up a little bit? It was no convenience. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It was no convenience purchasing gold from you yesterday. I realize there is no power in convenience. Your movement is very powerful and safe. Thank you, Lynette. Shout out to Kenneth. Kenneth does such a great job. He'll be coming on again. But yeah. Freedom is not free, nor is it convenient. Integrity is not convenient, but it is really necessary. So I appreciate that shout out too. And I'm glad that you did it. Thank you very much. And thank you for your support. And Cheryl asks, thoughts on Wyoming approving their own CBDC. Well, Wyoming also approved recently the ability to pay property taxes. I don't know about that, but I will look at it. Okie doke. Okay, let's see. Can you make that bigger? Here we go. Wyoming has launched its own stablecoin. All right, it's not a CBDC, it's a stablecoin. Yeah, the Frontier Stable Token, FRNT. So you guys can see this, right? Yes, I love that. First state-backed stablecoin. We are going to see so many different stablecoins, and this is part of what they're talking about, is the fragmentation of the stablecoin market. The other thing that I want to point out is that even though 99% of the current stablecoins are backed by US dollars, they don't have to be. You're going to see a Singapore stablecoin, you're going to see a yuan stablecoin, everything. So this is just the start of it. Let's see. So the public benefit, they're saying, is interest generated by FRNT's reserves will be diverted to Wyoming School Foundation Fund quarterly, serving its citizens as a public good. So if they're issuing the stablecoin, you're going to have to buy that. That will take the money out of the banking system, out of checking or savings. This is really what the Federal Reserve was talking about, but it's not a CBDC. It is a stable coin, and you're going to see it all over the place. The state aims for transparency with reserve information available online. We'll take a look at that. But what are they going to use? Let's see. This initiative comes amid the Federal Reserve's reluctance to launch its own central bank currency. Yeah. Digital currencies. This is really interesting. They can't create it from nothing. You know, Walmart's going to create it from purchases. Wyoming now has to buy dollars or treasuries. This is a mess. And it will be, every state? We're going to have 52 state stable coins, plus all the ones from Walmart and Amazon and all the Can you see this problem? I see a big problem. But great question, Cheryl. I appreciate that a lot. Amir Bilal Mohammed asks, I heard that some stores like LBMA, so these are gold houses, have more than 2 billion ounces of physical silver, which still allow them to manipulate the silver prices. What's your knowledge about that? Is it true? Look, LBMA does not need to have physical silver in order to manipulate the prices. The COMEX does a great job of that because there are really no limitations to how many contracts have been created. And the size of those contracts, remember I did something on it not that long ago where they made the contracts smaller and smaller and smaller. And in fact, there are now 1 ounce contracts on gold. Anyway, I'll have to look at silver. I'm not sure. Does the COMEX have 1 ounce silver? What's the smallest silver contract now? But they've got to look, every Ponzi scheme needs new money. So what they're doing is they're making these contracts smaller and smaller to entice the public to start trading as the big players get out. So do they have those? Not so sure that they have the physical ounces. The small silver contract is the micro futures, which is 1,000 troy ounces of silver. This is 1/5 the size of the standard 5,000 ounce silver futures contract. In gold, they have 1 ounce. So this is about making it more accessible for the public so that they can continuously bring new money in so the smart money gets out as the new money gets in. This is exactly what they did in 28 and 29. This is exactly what they did leading up to the NASDAQ, the internet bubble in 2000, right? This is exactly what they did going before 2008, and they're doing it again. This is a tried and true playbook, but they don't need the physical ounces. It's just that in Europe, that is more of a physical market. Here in the US, who needs the physical? Let's just make all of these contracts so that the markets read it as if it exists. I can't tell you how many how many derivative contracts against gold and silver there are, but I can tell you before the Bank for International Settlements changed its accounting, for every 1 ounce of physical gold, there were over 62,000 digital ounces of gold. They don't need the physical to manipulate. They need the digital. That's why this stuff was created, because it's all about perception management. Actually, I did this. I don't know if you can do this. Can you go into stockcharts.com? I don't know if you can do this because I don't know if you have on your laptop. But I was doing it. I think I was actually doing it with Kenneth. Can you pull up the $ and GOLD? Okay, so far I think he's probably in the free one. Okay, you see those gray bars on the right hand side? You got to get rid of that image that went over that. No. Get rid of that. Skip ad. Lose that. There you go. Now zoom back out a little bit. Keep going. See those gray what do you call it, on the right-hand side of the screen? No, not on the chart. On the right-hand side of the screen. Down. Oh, no, to the right. Go to the right. No, you're on the chart. Get off the chart. Down a little teeny bit. Yeah, now go right. There you go. See where it says more? You're on it. Click there. See where it says relative perf chart? That one. Nope, you went too far. Nope, the third one up. That one. Click it. Okay, now that is the spot gold market. Go ahead and put in, what do you think is performing the best? NASDAQ? So up at that top where you see the $ and GOLD, put a comma. You want to see the S&P? And then put a $ and put there, oops, nope, you went too far. See where it says S&P 500, which is probably the very top line? Yeah, click on that. Okay, so this is showing you, oh, God, that's annoying. This is showing you the relative performance of spot gold against the S&P 500. So you think that gold, what do we hear all the time? Gold doesn't do anything, blah, blah. But this is just a 200-day performance. You want to put that comma in and do a $ US dollar. If there's something else you want to see on this relative performance chart, let Josh know and he'll put it in there. There you go. See, it's harder to see, but it's that green line. Yep, that's the dollar, the spot dollar chart. Anything else, even on the shorter term, spot gold is outperforming. Can you grab, you see those little vertical gray bars? Ugh, get rid of that thing. That is just driving me out of my mind. Okay, below that, see there's a line, and nope, don't scroll. Leave it. Yeah, move the cursor down just a little bit more. There, on that. Now move it over just a little to the left. No, I didn't want you to do that. Move the cursor, don't grab it. Now, oops, no. There, now grab it and move it all the way out. Yep, there you go. This goes back to 99. And so no matter what it is that you are thinking, and you could actually even put silver in there too, but let's keep going. Remember, this is a relative performance chart, and I'm not sure that he actually, because we have a subscription, a corporate subscription, I'm not really sure that he does on there, so that means that you can probably do this too. But can you see the outperformance of gold, spot gold, going all the way back to 99? I mean, there it is. You could put the NASDAQ in there. You could put silver in there. You can put anything you want in there, and then look at the truth, because everything else is perception management. And how true is this? When they can create as much gold and silver as they want, that does not ever have to exist. So you see the stock market making new highs. The dollar is just trying to sort of hold its own inside of these markets. But clearly, spot gold is the winner. Why? Because it's sound money. Did anybody else want to see anything else in that? But you can do that. So we just showed you how to do that. You can do it on your own. You probably don't need a subscription to do that. Can we go back to the questions, please? There we go. Okay. Miramar, what kind of rights could we possibly have if individual vendors issue their own stablecoins with their own terms? Exactly the point. Exactly the point. So anything that they can do to create that new artificial market like they did with oil back in the 70s, right? Whatever they need to do to keep this game going until they have enough people suckered in or until it just falls apart. Because you cannot assume that they're always going to be able to maintain control. They're not. They're losing control. That's why they have to do all of this stuff. Yeah, it's awful. And imagine how many thousands and thousands of stable coins there are going to be. And the more there are, the less money there is to lend out and stimulate the economy. That's deflationary. There's only one way to fight that deflation, and that's with inflation. I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's just really actually very simple. Amir Bilal Mohammed asks, do you think USA set gold to $10,000 or even more? If yes, when do you expect that to happen? If that happens, what will be the price of silver? Again, ratio 88 range or much lower. It'll be much higher than 10,000. 10,000 would be chump change because what they've done in the past, like, okay, when they first came out with this system going back to 1914, okay, they had a level of gold in there, and it was this itty-bitty thing that backed a 1 ounce silver dollar or a $1, a 20th of an ounce. So it's a 20-to-1 ratio, okay? Now, once they legalized the Federal Reserve, then they had this 1/20th of an ounce backed $2.40. Actually, do you know that chart that we're using in that other video that we're working on where it shows how that, that big one, do you know which one I'm talking about? In that part 1. You remember that graph that you're going to do the graphics on to make it more clear? So it's going to be a little fuzzy and not as pretty as it's going to be. But can you pull that up?
Where's it from?
It's from part 1 on the Barr speech where he compared he compared the Great Depression, the savings and loan crisis, and the great financial crisis. Because I'm going to show it to you. I'm always dying to show you because history repeats itself. And when I can go in and I can pull things from the past to prove that to you, just makes a whole lot of sense. Yes. Now that is the overall chart, but one below it is going to show what I'm trying to show. Yeah, that one. No, you were right with the cursor. No, not that one. That one. Okay. So this is the kickoff. Now you just saw the overall chart, and we are working on this, and this is one of the pieces. But you see that thick black line in the bottom where it says 1914? Yep, that, okay? That is the gold that the U.S. government held in deep storage. That kind of looks like an ice cream sandwich. So above it, you can see what they did to create this. Because look, let's see, it's a $20 bill that I want. I mean, it's freaking genius, but it's just so evil and disgusting. and not okay with me. Okay. So first, there was this. There was the gold money. Then they did the gold certificates. Then they said, okay, corporations, you can convert your debt into Federal Reserve notes. So the corporations benefited because they got all sorts of this new money, and that's that 1 to 10 ratio. That ratio up there, oops, it went away. Where'd it go? Oops, you took it away. But yeah, there you go. So that kind of looks like that sandwich above that black bar. That was corporate debt converted into this, made to look like that. So when these two went away, that transition was complete. When did that happen? Well, it happened in the beginning. When did they take this away? 1933. And so what I'm trying to show you and explain to you and tell you is that the corporations are at it again. And that when President Trump signed the Genius Act, the monetary system changed, just like it did in 1913 when they legalized the Federal Reserve. And so the corporations helped create all of that inflation, 2.4 from 1 to 2.4. That's why you see that huge drop off in purchasing power that happened in the purchasing power chart. It's disgusting. But 10,000? Way higher than that. And I can't tell you what that's going to be because it will be based upon how much of this is out there and what that initial cover ratio will be. Now, globally on average, they do those resets 3 times, but it could be fewer than that. It could be more than that. Venezuela, when they did that very first overnight reset, that went up 3,500%. 3,500. And gold was still not at its true fundamental value, but now it was finally on its way. And that's what's going to happen here as well. And there are reasons why we are going to execute one part of the strategy during that first overnight reset. So I think it will be substantially higher. When do I expect that to happen? I think we probably have, you can't hold me to this. Timing is the biggest challenge. But I would guess maybe 2-ish years. It doesn't mean that nothing happens between now and then. What happens between now and then is the hyperinflation. But I'm thinking maybe the public will feel enough pain in maybe about 2-ish years, not very far down the road. That's why it's important to get it done now. And if that happens, what will be the price of silver? Well, I don't think it'll go to that back to that 20-to-1 ratio, but it will be substantially higher. And again, what silver really does and why it's the barterable part of my personal portfolio is because it actually does maintain your ability to purchase the same goods over time. Whereas gold does that, but it also expands it. So the food group, I think it was up like 2,500%, just tracking from the Bureau of Labor Statistics so that I have consistency from 1913 to 2025. And it was up maybe, 2,500%. But spot silver was up a bit more than 3,000%. So can you see that it maintains your ability to buy the same thing? But spot gold was up over 16,000%. So it certainly maintains your ability to buy the same thing, but it also expands it. Okay. I don't know what that ratio is, nor do I. I only care because you care. This is not a trade for me. What I'm looking for is what am I trying to accomplish? And then I want the right tool for the job. I don't want to barter with this, right? I don't want to barter with this, right? Right now, even though this is a 20th of an ounce. So this is probably right now several $100s. I don't want to barter with this, but I do want to barter with this. I do. So silver is for barterability for me. I don't know what the ratio is going to do, but what I can tell you is I do expect it to see it grow more narrow, but then I also expect to see it expand, because in all of the studies that I've done, and I've done some that you can look at here, but in all the studies that I've done, that ratio grows more narrow, but once you really hit the full stride of the hyperinflation, it expands again. So I like my silver because I don't want to have to barter with gold, though I could barter with this. I could barter with this, right? I could barter with it, but I'd rather do it with silver. And Kathy Piscatello says, if there is no protection for the consumer, what about regulations? What is regulations? What is draw? More liquidity, more debt. Remember, that's a question that I've been asking for a bunch of years now. What's going to justify this money creation? And you know, the two things that I have seen and talked about right along was either debt, which means that they have to get rid of this unpayable debt. There's your hyperinflation that they need to have happen, right? So they repay that debt with dollars that have zero value. And you know, what they want you to believe is that the Federal Reserve is a necessity and that their regulations will protect you. Well, have they so far? Who have they really protected? And with all the new laws that they're putting in place and the safe harbors and the exemptions for creative choices, I mean, what that means, no, there's no protections from you. You're the right size to fail. You are not in that chosen group, which is why we need to get that chosen group back in the system again. And I'm as serious about that as I am about a heart attack. We have to do this, or what they have in mind for us ain't going to be pretty. I mean, you'll be a slave. And a lot of people are debt slaves right now, but this is going to be even worse than that. Worse. So, yeah, more liquidity, only one way to fight that deflation, and that's with inflation. So if money comes out of the banks to go into stable coins and you're shopping, because that's what's going to be justifying it for these vendors, is you shopping, right? You buying stuff. And then, boom, they buy that government debt. Not problem solved, because then the central banks have to print more to fight the deflation that is being caused by it. This was what the whole report was about. Yeah, that'll support the debt markets. It'll support the Treasury markets for a minute if they can get it, because what they're also talking about is from a $125 billion market now to over a $2 trillion market by 2028. Did you get that? $125 billion market now to over a $2 trillion market by 2028. What do you think is going to happen with all of that rapid growth? You think there's not going to be a major accident? Who could have seen it coming? Unintended consequences. Well, a blind monkey should be able to see this coming, because it's here. And especially, why would you need to create safe harbors and exemptions, except you know that they're going to be tested just like they were in 2008, and no one went to jail. But a lot of people lost everything. A lot of people have not recouped. And Amir asks, any enemy of Western financial system, if buy sufficient amount of silver contracts and ask for physical delivery, could that crash the system? Yeah, Actually, it could crash the system. And that's what we saw. All of the repatriation that took place the beginning of this year with both gold and silver was because there were people or entities, I don't know who they were, that stood for delivery and we couldn't deliver it. So that gold and that silver came from Europe to the US, and a lot of that gold came from the Bank of England, and it wasn't the Bank of England's gold that they sent. And we haven't seen the impact of that yet. But the Bank of England holds gold for a whole bunch of different countries. What gold did they ship over here? Was it the gold that they were holding for the other countries? What happens if they ask for their gold back? So that lies in the future. And I'm sure we're going to see that. And I'm sure it's going to be very nasty. And I'm also sure that what we're looking at here is most likely to be a central bank coordinated event. Coordinated. And we saw their coordination from 2008 until 2022. That was all coordinated movements, and that's what they're dealing with here. So yes, absolutely, Amir. If these governments ask for their gold back, so to your point, stand for delivery, or others in the U.S. stand for delivery, meaning give me the silver, give me the gold. If enough entities do that, what they'll do is they'll call a force majeure and they'll pay you out in cash. And they've done that too in the not too distant past, where they just declare it a force majeure so that you don't know it yet. But I think that's why I think the Bank of England issue is much bigger than that, because that's not something that they're going to be able to do. They may postpone and say, well, okay, we need 6 years to give you back your gold, like they've done, like the U.S. did to Germany, again, not all that long ago, in the teens of, so maybe like 10 years ago or something like that. They did it sooner, but yeah, I think standing for delivery, demanding their gold back is going to force this issue, and that we still have in our future. And Chui Hermosillo asks, I love dollars. System is fine, won't collapse. Glad you know that, but that would not be historically accurate. But we like all opinions here, because then everybody can sit there and say, well, what sounds the most right to me? Right? So this is not what I'm trying to do here. Is I'm trying to build a community. And in this community, everyone is welcome and all thoughts need to be heard. And then you get to decide what works. But it's a cult that only has one thought, right? That's not what we are. We need a community of diversified people with lots of different thoughts on it. I do, however, suggest that anybody take the time to educate themselves, because a random opinion does not have as much value as a well-educated opinion does. And Elliot Sanders asks, have you heard of monetary metals? Where you loan them some of your gold and they will pay you 4% in physical gold, not cash, each month. What do I think about this? I would need to look into that program more. So if you could just grab that for me and look into that program more. I'd have to look at it more before I could make a statement on it. And would you email that to me? Okay. And Colleen Allen asks, need more help. Went to PCGS as you directed. Example, how do I figure out the current value of a $5 gold Indian coin so I know the coin dealer is offering a fair price when I sell the coin? Okay. So if you go into PCGS, maybe we can do this for Colleen and everybody else. Can we go to pcgs.com? And there should be a list of prices in there. Okay, there should be a choice for services up at the very top, and I can't really see it. I can't read that far, but there should be something where it says about coin values or something like that.
Coin grading?
You can go in there, but I don't think that's it.
So they have the coin grading, they have coin submission guide, collecting resources.
Where's the guide?
Coin submission guide.
Oh, no, not the coin submission guide. That's, you know what? How about, because I'll find it, but it might just take a second. Yes, how to use it. Okay, I will pull that up for you next week. That would actually probably be a good thing for Emerald to do. Actually, I think that could be a good thing for Emerald to do. Okay, so I will let you know, Elliot. Come back next week. And Colleen Allen, oh no, it was Colleen. Okay. And Tiana Licks, the guy from Argentina you interviewed, posted a video where he stated gold can get you killed. He said in another video, gold stores advertise for people to sell their gold by playing into fear. So is that, are you talking about my friend George Gammon, that, or was it somebody from hyperinflation? I'm not sure who. Tiana, can you tell me who that is, and then we can look at it. But you know, I mean, honestly, the whole point of this is how invisible it is, right? And if you're talking about George, when he went down there, he took gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Nobody took the Bitcoin, period. The gold was at a 50% discount to the person on the street. The silver was the most easily accepted, but you know where most of it came in easy was inside of community. So you have to have those layers. But yeah, they're advertised for people to sell their gold by playing on that fear because, yeah, I'd have to look at the video. I can't really speak to it. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't. But I'll if you can send the link, I'll look at the video and we can talk about it. And Gina Young asks, "Hi Zang Gang. Hi Lynette, you look great." Oh, thank you so much. I hope Juliet is doing better. She's doing way better. Juliet had pneumonia, but now she's completely over it. She's great. Please explain how stable coins can lead us into hyperinflation. How does that work? Okay, this is how it works. These different states, companies, banks create stable coins. You take your money out of your checking account to buy that stable coin. The bank has that much less to lend out into the marketplace. That creates deflation. There's only one way to fight deflation, and that's with inflation. So in will step the central banks, creating more debt and more inflation. When that all becomes obvious to the public, then that confidence in the system is lost, and there's your hyperinflation. The only reason we don't have hyperinflation right now is because the public still has confidence in this stuff. Don't ask me why. I have no confidence in it. But the public in general does, because one of the things that they do when they created the system was that people marry the legal money of the state. So just like Chewy said earlier, oh, the dollar's fine, nothing's going to happen or something to that event, it's because he's married the legal money of the state. And that is what enables them to rob you of your work and your wealth through inflation. So that's how it's going to happen. That's what that whole report from the Fed was about. That sure, we can support the Treasury market by issuing these stable coins, but the money to buy those stable coins will come out of the banking system, leaving less money to lend and therefore pushing us into deflation. And because they have to fight the deflation, they will print money and create that hyperinflation. And if that didn't work, Gina, you let me know, and I'll try and explain it another way. And CJF asks, if gold is revalued, wouldn't it be political suicide, therefore be possibly after midterms? Also, if gold is not officially revalued, how will it reach its true fundamental value? Okay, so if gold is revalued, wouldn't it be political suicide, therefore possibly be after midterms? By the time that they're going to revalue it, nobody has any confidence in the system. Midterms aren't going to matter. Nothing is going to matter. Look at Zimbabwe, okay? They cannot, after 6 revaluations, the public does not trust the currency, period. They do not trust the politicians or the central banks, period. That trust is all gone. So midterm elections, none of that's going to matter at that point. So and the political suicide, remember that distance, are you going to equate the hyperinflation with the passage of the Genius Act? Probably not. Right? Because it's kind of complicated, even though that will be the tool to usher that in. So, it's none of that's going to matter, because remember, when they do that revaluation, it's about getting public confidence back. Public confidence will be gone by that point. And if gold is not officially revalued, how will it reach its true fundamental value? Well, it's been moving toward its fundamental value, even on the spot market, right? It's no longer face value. This is $20, right? Face value of this is $50. Can you buy this for $50? Because I can't buy this for $50. Nobody can buy this for $50. So understand that even when it is not officially revalued, the official price of gold is $42.22. The markets have been revaluing it. And think about this. Why isn't the spot market still at, it was $248 when I first got involved back in 2002. Why isn't it still $248 an ounce? Because it's being revalued by the markets. Now, not to its fundamental value, because they benefit by trading it. But putting all these things together, so governments asking for their gold back, and then it's discovered that the Bank of England doesn't have the gold to send back there, right? So all of these factors together, the public losing confidence in the system because inflation is running so high and hot. That's what the general public understands. They don't understand anything that we're talking about here. But they do understand when they go to the grocery store, and now even those 4 easy payments are not enough to feed their family even for a week. So it's that confidence piece that pushes everything over the edge and then will push the black market gold price, because that's what we find. What we find when we're looking at countries like Venezuela or Zimbabwe, the black market is already revaluing gold to a level. Now, not up to its true fundamental value either, because, they're going to be around to buy the gold. However, they're not going to pay true market value because there is risk involved when you're going on the black market. So that piece gets a little bit complicated, but governments will have to do it. And again, it's happened over 4,800 times. So could this time be different? Well, I suppose so, but is it likely to be different? No, I don't think it's likely to be different. So, but to answer your question, CJF, even if gold is not officially revalued, which they will do to regain or attempt to regain public confidence, the markets will do it anyway. Maybe not in the official markets, so we see the suppression, which is why you always see that straight up when they do that revaluation, because they've been holding it down. And it kind of works like a spring, which I have a spring here. I don't do this very well, but we'll give it another shot, right? When you hold a spring down, you can do that for a certain period of time, but then when you release it, it jumps in a direction. And so that's why when they've been suppressing the true value, the true price, the fundamental value of gold, they've been suppressing it and suppressing it. When they do that revaluation, that's why you see it goes boom, straight up. Now, the revaluation that you've been seeing here has been a definite increase in the spot price, but not a straight up yet. In the overnight revaluations, that's when you see that. So if this time is different, it's still being revalued by the markets. But is this time different? Probably not. And this is a global issue. So everything is bigger because this is a global issue. And that goes back to, I believe this will be a coordinated global effort by the central banks. Because someplace over here, like a large country like the U.S., all right, it's all right for Zimbabwe. Maybe it's okay for Venezuela or some of those other places, because here in advanced economies, we go, well, those are third world countries. But remember, too, in those third world countries, when people have fled their currency, their local currency, because it's been hyperinflating away, they've run to dollars because dollars appear to be more stable. But I've shown you a gazillion times when you look at one currency against the dollar and then against spot silver and then against spot gold, the dollar is always way behind the spot silver and spot gold. Mostly gold outperforms everything at any kind of time level. Not 100%, but I would probably say about 98.5% to 99% of the time, spot gold always outperforms spot silver. But there are changes. So Jimbo Khan asks, are U.S. Mint commemoratives considered collectibles? Yes, commems are considered collectibles. Why are the pre-33 protected? I don't understand. Also, is a Liberty commemorative not a collectible? Well, a commemorative could indeed be considered a collectible. And I'm not sure. Can you pull up and see if you can hold a commemorative inside of an IRA? Because for me, that's really the answer. If I can hold it inside of an IRA, then it's classified officially by the IRS as monetary gold. I'm not sure that you can or not, but Josh will look that up. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. Well, yep, it looks like you can indeed hold a commemorative in an gold IRA, but collectibles are prohibitive. So the government, the IRS, does not classify commemoratives as collectible, even though they're done in limited quantity. That's also a smaller market. Can I go back to the question? And why are pre-33s protected? Pre-33s are protected because they were protected in the original order 6102. Any coin minted prior to 1933 is classified as rare and collectible. Now, they want you to think that it's because of the gold content weight, but these are all standardized. So quite honestly, it's not accurate. That's not the real reason. But whenever anybody writes a law or a rule, if they know that you're not going to go in and read it, or a contract, right? Because that's what laws are. They're contracts. If they know that you're not going to read it, whose benefit are they going to write this in? And there are coins in this arena, pre-33, that go for the many millions of dollars for 1 ounce of gold. That's the classification that I want to be in, because historically, and they even revisited that, I think it was in the 50s, they revisited that law about these having special value and being rare and collectible. So they just reinforce it, and that's really why. So commemoratives are not collectible. Pre-33s are protected because there's laws on the books that protect them, and you can go inside of that classification simply because I think that if somebody can afford 19 or 18 or even $5 million for 1 ounce of gold, they're either the ones that write the laws or have the ability to influence those that write the laws. Because if they were to do an overt confiscation, there are some people that think that they would offer $50, but I don't think I'm not one of them. Because honestly, they don't want pushback. They want you to think that you're great, that they're great and they're generous. And this is what I think it's going to look more like. Okay, the government calls on your patriotic duty to turn in your gold, and let's say spot is trading at $5,000 when that happens. And they say, and we're going to pay you $7,000 for that gold. And they go in and do this huge sweep of IRAs. And they'd leave lots of those pieces of paper, right? And people would go, well, okay, look, it's only worth $5,000 and they're willing to pay me $7,000. Okay, I don't mind. And then at a point after that, when they do that revaluation and gold begins to move to its fundamental value, where are you? You're out in the cold if your gold got converted back into this stuff, because this stuff is being inflated away and it has no value. It has a level of value now because it's still our tool of barter. So yeah, that's what I have to use when I go out to buy stuff. But we're getting to a point where if they can trap you in the system, and if every single thing you have is digital only, then you have to do anything that they want you to do. You will not have any choices. That's why laying in that sound money strategy right now is really important. And the reason why I like the pre-33s is because I believe they have a level of safety and protection that bullion does not have. And so since I'm crystal clear on its fundamental value, that's my wealth insurance. That premium that I pay above this, I promise you, I am not going above fundamental value to buy these coins. So any fees, any costs, anything gets eaten up. And now, if this is the only way that you can hold gold, guess who's going to have it? The 1%, unless you go in and lay it in now while it's still affordable, because that'll push the prices up ginormously if that's the only way that you can hold it. And Gloria Curry asks, I just want to say strategy specialist Riley Brewster is a gem. She is a gem. I love Riley. Zang Enterprises is lucky to have her. really genuine, caring, and knowledgeable. Thank you, Gloria. She is a gem, and it's been my pleasure working with her. And she'll be back on as well to have conversations with you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And so does Riley, I'm sure. And Barbara Burns asked, I'm late, Mrs. Lynette. The guy Furful, okay, from Argentina's name on YouTube is The Modern Survivalist. Yes, okay. I will be, I know who you're talking about now. Okay. And, we probably need to get him back on, actually. We'll do that. And Patriot Girl 1 asked, gold backs like art, very pretty. I'd rather have silver. Yes, but the good thing about the gold backs, right, there's places for everything, right? You want to be properly diversified. And gold backs are very pretty, but this is a thousandth of an ounce of gold. I can't do that with anything, even with the silver, because this is, I have both, right? Why not have all of it? Because this will be a little bit easier like cash, but you don't even have to do gold backs. It doesn't matter. You'd still need a level of cash, and the cash is going to lose all of its value. And I agree. Gold backs are not the lion's share. They're one of the smallest parts of my portfolio, but I can see a place in it in a layered approach, in a diversified approach. But I love my silver. I love my gold. That's where, and really, this is where I have the lion's share of my wealth is in that. But I own all of them, and there's no reason why you can't. But you have to do what you are comfortable with, because it works without gold backs too. You're going to have some cash for that first line of defense if you're laying in the strategy. And you don't have to either, but it's up to you. And Angela Cobb says, I like my gold backs, LOL. See, that's what I'm saying. We have to let everybody come in and everybody share their thoughts. And then you have to decide what feels the most right for you. And even when you call us, have this conversation. Let us know, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then it's always the right tool for the job. Because I can guarantee you that I have hammered in a nail to hang a picture with the back of my shoe. I've probably done that way more than once. But if I have a hammer, it just goes so much easier and faster and better. So it's the right tool for the job, and that has to start with your goals and your circumstances. That's where it has to start. And then also your level of comfort, because you are the one that will reap the rewards or suffer the consequences of any of the choices that you make. That's really why I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you the choices that I've made for myself. And then you can decide what's right for you. And Eva Sintra says, Lynette, I have a few savings in registered accounts here in Canada. Should I withdraw them, take the tax hit, and invest in gold and silver? Well, you've got to do what you're comfortable, Eva. And the answer is yes. You saw what Canada did, and Canada's not sitting on any gold, which means that it's going to be much harder for Canadians as we go through this global hyperinflation, because Canada's basically given their power away. And having said that, even for those that are holding gold in registered accounts in Canada, how safe do you think that is? And I know that when they do these retirement accounts, when they do any of this, the money market account, whatever, the primary discussion is, how high do these fees have to be? How high do we have to make it look like to discourage people from taking that distribution? We can recoup your taxes or any fees or any losses. We can recoup that because you're buying gold and silver so severely undervalued. Again, not rocket science, it's just logical. But the truth of the matter is you need to know the true fundamental value of every single asset or every single instrument, because that is the only way for you to know if something is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. Therefore, do I want to buy it? Do I want to hold it? Or do I want to liquidate it? Right? You can have hopium, and that's what people are doing right now. Fear of missing out. So the hope is that all these things will keep going up in terms of this. But is that the real trend? No. The real trend is in what you can buy with this stuff. That's the real trend. And if you look on the purchasing power chart, the Fed tells you the true value of this stuff is zero. And we're not too far from it right now. Officially, we're not too far from it. So 10 trillion, you guys know I have here it is, my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note, and I can't buy anything with it. Doesn't matter how many zeros are at the end of it. Doesn't matter how much of this stuff you have. It matters what you can convert it into. And it truly is that simple. Are trust bank accounts private? No, they are not. No, they are not. So I guess I should answer. The choice that I made was to pay my taxes and even at the time penalties and convert it all into this. This is my retirement plan right here. This is my retirement plan. Not just one, but this. And no, trust bank accounts are not private. And S. Wynn asks, what's the best way to turn gold and silver back into fiat? The best way to do that is to sell it back from whoever it is that you bought it from. But I always suggest that, like, if you did not buy it from us, but you bought it from another dealer, we will happily give you the bid price on it. And then you go to the dealer that you bought it from and see what they will pay you for it. That's a good way of holding their toes to the fire. But that's the easiest way and the best way and the way you will get the most from it. We talk about our exit strategy because we have it set up where we have a number of different ways that we can liquidate for you. But our job on the way out is to capture the most that we possibly can for you. So we want more than one way. So really, that's the best way to do it. And we're happy to give you bids on it so that you can make educated choices. And earlier we were talking about the PCGS. I will pull that and I'll have that for you. So that's another tool, though the amounts on there are kind of halfway between retail and wholesale. At least that's what I've found over time. But it can give you a guide. It can certainly give you a guide. So I'll show you that next week. And in fact, I will let that be what I talk about first, and so we can have that conversation. And you want me to remind the viewers again? Okay.
They were adamant about making sure.
Yes. And I'll keep doing this until I go. And I'm getting really excited about going to the Nomad Capitalist and going to Malaysia. It's a part of the world I've never been to before. But this is really, for me, it's all about getting sound money back in the global system again. And so I am very happy and very fortunate, and so are you, to have Emerald, whom I've worked with for 5-6 years or so, something like that. We've been together for a very, very long time, and I'm thrilled to pieces. Some of you might remember when she came in to begin with, and we were doing the Gee Whiz weekends, but fortunately, she is multi-talented and she is amazing at operations. And actually, she is the vice president I believe she's the vice president of operations. So she's very talented in any questions like that. Those would be the ones to bring to her because she knows that system. She knows our system well, way better than I do. Believe me, you don't want me to explain our system to you. But Emerald is phenomenal, and I could not be happier or more thrilled to have such a bright, capable young woman to pass my knowledge on to pass the torch on to. Now, having said that, I don't want you to freak out and go, oh my God, she's leaving. I'm not leaving. The only time I will leave you is when I am no longer on this planet. And so that gives me 30 more years because I'm not yet 71. And I believe I'm going to live to be 100. But having Emerald here so that I don't have to do things from far away and have it be poor quality. Emerald will give you all the quality you need on this Q&A. I'm excited for her. She's a little bit probably nervous about it because it'll be the first time that she's done it. But she's very good. She's very bright, and we are very lucky to have her. You and me, we are very lucky to have her. And she'll just get better and better and better and better and better. And I'm not going anywhere but Malaysia in September. And yes. And Michael Lamb asks, how does an account with kinesis play into the systems? You don't physically hold the metals, but can have them send it to you when you request delivery. Is it a good system? Where it fits in is that very first line of defense. So that you have, it's the same place where the gold backs fit in and the same place where the cash fits in, right? Your very first line of defense so that you have a bridge into the barterable place. Because what happens is when this crisis unfolds, things get very local for a while, right? So that's where it fits in. I'm okay with it because you can request delivery. If you couldn't, I would not be okay with it because we know if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But for a small portion of this overall strategy, it fits in the very, very beginning part. And that would be something that you would discuss with your strategy specialist to determine how much that would be. But that's where it fits in. And that's why that's not where I would hold the lion's share by any stretch of the imagination. But for that first line of defense, yes, it makes sense. It's a way to diversify your holdings and instantly be able to use them. And they will ship them to you. I think it's like 100. Don't hold me to this, but I think it's like 100-ounce minimum or something like that. I pulled a comparison recently, and I could be wrong. Josh is going to pull that up. And so for most people, that wouldn't work because I wouldn't hold 100 ounces.
While I'm looking into that, a lot of comments are asking, like, how much? Like, do we buy 1 gold ounce or do we buy a lot of other, like, fractional,
You mean
gold,
for
like,
the strategy in general?
There's a lot of questions about, like, what should they do specifically, and
that's why call us. That what you should do specifically is give us a call. And then there are a couple people that are in here today that have been working with our strategy specialists. And, because I can't give you a blanket answer. I can tell you what I've done for me, and I can tell you why I've made those choices and how much I've done. Like, for example, for me personally, because this is a global issue, I have my silver part of my barterable portfolio and the barterable gold part of my portfolio enough for 10 years for me and for both of my daughters, taking into account. I also have enough gold, this kind of gold, to pay off their mortgages and the little bit that I have on my mortgage. So, it really is done, even though the overall strategy is the same, whether you're executing it or I'm executing it. There are going to be nuances because we have different goals and we're in different circumstances. And so I can't really give you a blanket answer. I can give you a general answer. You might want 3 months worth of cash if you're still working. But if you're retired and you're using some of the money that you're going to put into gold now for income, well, then you might need a year's worth of cash. And then out of that cash, how much of it should be in gold backs? How much of it should be in kinesis or even glint or something like that? So it just kind of depends. And just call us. We will give you all the time that you need because we are committed to you. Absolutely. We are all here to be of service. And the minimum amount you can send is through minting or cash side is 100 grams. And on the Kinesis exchange, you can probably read this for yourself, but you can purchase even small amounts down to, an itty bitty bit. However, to mint new gold on the Kinesis Mint, the minimum purchase is 100, which I think, 100 grams. So, I think there's 32 some odd grams in an ounce. So that's not horrendous. Does it say how much for taking distribution? To buy and sell, to take distribution. No, it's not how much you can purchase. I want to know the distribution. So it's not that much to get into it. And you can even do smaller than that, and the minimum purchase is 100 grams. And the minimums you can redeem 100 grams. All right, so that's not horrendous. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. So there you go. Okay. And Phil McCracken says pre-33 gold doesn't get us out of capital gains taxes. Correct. Let's see. Even though it is still constitutional currency. This is why we have to work at the state level and the federal level to remove all of those taxes. Because as Ron Paul said, you ought to tax money. But of course, this money is taxed through inflation. This money is more overt because you don't see that inflation. But if you have to send it to them, however, I would say that the gains that you make on this and the protection that you make on this and the positioning that you're able to make on this puts you in the best possible position, even if you do have to pay those capital gains taxes. But let's work on that state and federal level to remove all of those taxable events. That's what we're working on. One of the things that we're working on. And Ethereal 369, a guy named Tony on TNT is getting people to invest in Iraqi dinar. It's so frustrating. People actually believe it and are giving up their savings, their homes to buy this crap. Yeah, but I don't even know what to say. I know a lot of people have a lot of hope, and then they're sent out this thing that, this is going to happen by this date, and this is going to happen by... No. And Don Brazy asks, do you think we head into a Great Depression in the coming years? Yes, I do. I think it's going to be a hyperinflationary depression, unfortunately. Yes, I do. That's why food, you need to create that surety. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, because we need, it takes a village, and shelter. These are the things. And understand that I do put food is the single most important medicine that you put in your bodies. And I really appreciate, the compliments that I'm aging backwards and I'm looking young. But I will tell you, and Josh can tell you because he sees it, that I eat a very nutritionally dense diet. And I really work hard to keep everything operating as optimally as possible because then I can think, right? And that's what we have to do. So unfortunately, yes, I'm sorry. I think it will be worse than 33 because it's the end of this big, long experiment. And they're going to have to scare everybody enough to shove things down their throat. And that's what makes getting the gold back in the global monetary system urgent. That's why I'm going to Malaysia. That's why I'm traveling around the world. And I can't talk about it yet, but that's why we're working on this on a global level, because we have to do that. We have to. If we don't, I just don't like the alternative. We'll deal with whatever we have to deal with, but I don't like the alternative. And Farm Girl asks, according to what I see on the Federal Reserve paper about revaluing gold, they would put it at the current price, not higher. Why do you think they would go higher? Because people would be outraged, and that's what they don't want. They do not want you to realize what they are doing. And if they did it at face value at $50 when you paid $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever you paid for it, how would you feel about that? So they're going to avoid that. And that's why I think they'll pay, because what difference does it make? I mean, they create this stuff out of thin air. What difference does it make how much they pay you for your gold? It doesn't. But it does matter if you care, right? And you'll be fooled. Well, you won't be fooled, but a lot of people will be completely fooled because they still put value in this stuff. This stuff has no value. So that's why. So they would go higher because they don't want pushback. It's that simple. And LC asks, if we have to barter using silver, what does that look like? Will it be at grocery stores? How will they break my change? So yes, you will have to barter using silver, and I've shown some examples of that. But like in Venezuela, they have things that are priced, their goods and their services in many places are priced in gold, a certain weight of gold, a certain weight of silver, or a certain weight of the bolivars, which they don't even really want. And so having this kind of junk, because I'll tell you right now, I would have no problem clipping off little pieces of this. That goes into the diversification. This is not quite, because it's 90% silver, 1/10 of an ounce. A quarter is roughly, not quite, because it's 90% silver, 1/4 of an ounce. A $half is 1/2 an ounce, not really, and a silver dollar is roughly an ounce. It's just easier rather than getting really complicated. A dime is 1/10, a quarter is 1/4, a $half is 1/2, and a dollar is an ounce. They did that logically. So you want that variety of sizes. If I only had to pick one size, which I don't, but if I did, it would be dimes, because it is easier to put 2 dimes together than to break a quarter in half. But in any form, right? I couldn't care, and in any condition. Look how tarnished this is. Can you see that? Do I care that it's tarnished? No, I don't care that it's tarnished. Who cares? It doesn't matter. All of this is actually pretty well tarnished. So it can be broken, it can be bent, it can have dings, it can be it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is all barterable. And if I needed to clip it, because change is irrelevant. In a lot of places, what they'll do is they'll give you change in whatever they have. So maybe candy bars or maybe gum. Change is irrelevant. So you want a variety of sizes. This is where the gold backs can come in, right? Really itty bitty pieces of gold. But this is where kinesis can come in. You see, there are your layers. So you have a variety. So whatever it is that you need to buy, you're buying it with as close as possible to the price, because you're not going to get any change. It doesn't matter. In the grocery stores, there are all sorts of scales. There are all sorts of computers. That will be the easy part. The change will not be the easy part. So make sure, and we'll make sure for you, if you're working with us, we're going to recommend a diversified portfolio. So you've got a variety of sizes and a variety of metals. And Cleob asks, what about people who serve the military and have a pension? My sister serves the Navy. Will she lose her pension too? It's not that she will lose the pension. It's that what she gets won't have any purchasing power. And there are a lot of people that are not just in the military, but are in the same circumstance. If you have, say, a 403B, it's not like you can take a distribution from it. So in some ways, having the ability to put some alternative investments in there, physical gold, I think that's why President Trump did that. It's not just the private equity. Scares the Hades out of me. And it's not just the cryptocurrencies, which also scare the Hades out of me. I believe that you will have the ability to put gold in there as well. And so that would be a thing to do, and something that you cannot take distribution of, and also properly diversify it outside of the system with the physical gold in your possession. And we can help you determine how much you need, because it's based on the fundamental value. So again, it's not rocket science. It's not really all that complicated. We try and keep it really simplified, because once it starts getting super complicated, you know, like the algorithms for those cryptocurrencies, where not only do you have to be an engineer, but a specific kind of engineer in order to understand this, I know I can be well taken advantage of. We will take the time at Zang Enterprises to help you understand everything. And if we explain it, if I explain it and you don't get it, that's why I say to you, please let me know, and I'm going to figure out another way to explain it, because it's important. That is my biggest goal, is to translate financial noise into understandable language so that you can make choices that put your best interest first, regardless of what anybody, including me, regardless of what anybody says. And Resistance Chick 777, the horses that are for sale, I mentioned early by the vet, are in Arizona. If you are looking for good transportation on your farm, we're actually thinking not so much horses, but whichever one is not aggressive, the donkeys or the mules or the jackasses. Was the direction that we were going to go in, because it's very, very hilly. I mean, we're on the top of a mountain. So we just thought that that would be better. And so far, so good with what's happening up there. So far, so good. So we're just kind of fingers crossed that I have the right people in place, and we'll get a few more right people in place, and then we can start to rock and roll up there. We're doing a lot, and especially with the fire mitigation. Honestly, this is the very first time that I have ever felt really comfortable up there, that they got the danger away from the structures anyway. So we're cooking with gas. It's doing well, and that's a really good thought. Where are they in Arizona? Yeah, But I don't know that horses would do as well as mules up there, just because they're more sure-footed. And Slayowick Reba, I'm sorry if I butcher anybody's name. Multiple stable coins on the same currency. Is this because they can detonate them all in a controlled fashion? One crashes, it isn't systemically devastating until it is. Yeah, this will be like a domino effect, where once it starts to blow up, it's just going to knock all of them down in their path. But it is the hyperinflationary tool. Can you see that? I mean, stable coins. The way they name anything, you gotta go. It's just the opposite. And we've seen stable coins blow up. But yeah, imagine when you've got, I don't know how many thousands of stable coins all over the world. And those third world countries, I'm going to tell you, they're going to be even, well, they'll be as devastated as we are here, because they're trying to run away from the local currency that is just imploding. But so there's no buffer when the dollar implodes. There's no buffer at all, because the people in these third world countries are buying dollar-backed stable coins, not even going through a bank or anything else. Yeah, this is not going to be pretty. This is going to be so ugly and nasty. And Melinda Hood asks, what do you think of keeping funds in T-bills or Fidelity Government Fund, a SPAC, which is a special acquisition group that is government instruments, as a place for cash earning 3 to 4.5%. This in addition to having gold. Is it safe? Well, okay. T-bills are short term. So earlier we talked about the hyperinflation, and that overnight revaluation is maybe 2 years down the road. So T-bills, a few months, it makes some sense. You could build a ladder where you go out and you buy a 3-month T-bill, and then you buy a 4-month, and then you buy a 5-month, and you buy a 6-month, and then when the first one matures, you go beyond that, and that's called a ladder, so that every month you have a chunk of cash, of dollars that are coming due. So if you need to use them, you can use them. If you don't need to use them, then you can go out a little bit longer for a pickup. I feel more comfortable with T-bills than I would with Fidelity's government fund, and that's because with the money markets, that's a money market. And while that's a government, what's in there is government backed, there are fees and gates. So, and what I mean by that is that they can stop your ability to pull your money out of that money market if a lot of people do that at once. Now, there's been a lot more money that have gone into the government money market funds, and those have a little bit layer of protection above just the regular corporate money markets. But well, we saw in 2008 when a lot of people were trying to take money out of the mutual funds, because the money market is a mutual fund, that they were like, boom, no, not going to happen. And then they changed the rules. And again, when they change the rules, they sit there and they say, how high do we have to make these fees to discourage people from pulling the money out? Because people go, well, I don't want to pay those taxes. I don't want to pay that fee. I'll just leave it in there. But I'm going to tell you, the fee that you pay is a whole lot less than the fee that you don't know about. And it's a lot more dangerous. So, Melinda, I would feel better with T-bills directly and giving up, because I don't think it's worth the interest. And if interest rates go down when you build out that ladder, you're going to get a little bit less interest. But why risk your principal for 3 to 4.5%? Why? It doesn't make sense to me. It's not worth it. And let's face it, gold does not pay interest. Why? Because it's the safest thing that you can do. It is the only financial instrument that runs no counterparty risk. What you're talking about is all counterparty risk. But the government can keep printing money to pay you, and they will. It'll just devalue everything else that's out there and create more inflation. And Kathy Piscatello asks, what are your thoughts about the paper market regarding gold and silver? Isn't it going to explode one day? As I've heard, there is less and less silver, especially available. Sure, and that's true. And you might recall that SLV, which is the silver ETF, in, was it 2020 or 2021 or somewhere in there, they changed their prospectus because they could not gather out in the market enough silver to make that silver basket. So they changed the prospectus so that all it has to do is match whatever the silver spot price is doing, which is highly manipulated. So, yes, I do think that one day it is going to explode. I think that piece has already been put in place the beginning of this year. And I think it's a very big deal because I think governments can do things that individuals can't. But if enough people stand for delivery, if enough banks go out, if there's a run on the banks and enough of them go out at one time, that's when it will be discovered that the emperor has no clothes. Right now, people think the emperor has clothes, even though it's not wearing any clothes. This debt is not payable. It's not just not sustainable. It hasn't been sustainable in a very long time. Period. Not payable. No purchasing power left. System must reset. You cannot fix a too much debt problem with even more debt. So, Tommy Two Gloves, is the City of London gold an arbitrage or a repatriation of Fort Knox inventory? I can't say whether or not it's a repatriation of Fort Knox inventory, but it could be. I mean, it's kind of interesting that we kept hearing about this audit, and then everything went dead silent. Why did it go dead silent? What did they discover? So that is a possibility, Tommy, but it is absolutely an arbitrage circumstance, 100%. And that's always really good to find and that's really also what makes understanding that fundamental value so important, right? Is the ability to buy it so far below its fundamental value, but I can give you very few guarantees. This one I can 100% give you. At some point, all assets, all instruments go to their fundamental value. So that is a great arbitrage opportunity. Absolutely. And we have yet to see the fireworks at the Bank of England. We will see those. I'm certain of it, especially with how aggressively global central banks are buying gold. There's a whole shift that's happening here. Yep. And that's why, it's critically important. And the Federal Reserve tells you that the dollars have no value. They cost nothing to create, right? The only thing that supports them is their ability to create more debt. The world is turning away from the debt. So we're creating a new artificial market to buy our debt that pushes us into deflation. Only one way to fight that, that's with inflation. It's a great question, Tommy. That's a good one. Sandy Anderson asks, I'm always here for the live stream, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you being here for the live stream. We've got to grow this. Love the work that you do. Thank you. My question today, if there, on average, are 3 resets, does that mean there will also be 3 waves of hyperinflation? That's exactly what that means. I did pull up, actually, let me move this out of the way because I actually did pull this up to show you, but I'll get into it more. Let me just grab this for a second. And I'm gonna move that and get rid of that. And let's see if I can open up, because I actually did pull this to show you. And I think, is it this? Yeah, this is the one. Okay. It's a little bit cleaner here. Okay, so you can see what happened, and this is the Venezuelan bolivar, and this is,
Will you turn your microphone towards you?
oh, yep, thank you, sorry. This is the Venezuelan bolivar, and that's the most current reset that they did on October 8th of 2021. This is gold's portion of the reset. You can see, you know, reset, right? This is roughly 9-ish months, something like that. There's no definitive. Over 10 years, spot gold in terms of Venezuelan bolivars, even with this reset, is up over 15,000%. But now, look at this. So now this takes it from the reset, October of 2021, and for a minute, it kind of stays along there, but then it starts to climb again. So that's what happens. You have that minute when they're resetting and spot is going up toward its fundamental value. Ultimately, when things get reset, everything gets reset, but then gold begins its climb again. So the answer is yes. If there are only 3 resets, there will be 3 waves of hyperinflation, or what it really is just a continuation, because they didn't resolve the hyperinflation with this reset. That didn't change. They changed the accounting, but it didn't change people's circumstance. So it's not 3 different hyperinflations. It is the same one, but it's just a continuation and a continuation. Does that make sense? So is there, we can do a little bit more, okay? Minyi Tio asks, okay, the first thing that Minyi says is, I might sound stupid. There are no stupid questions. We should be taught everything that I'm showing you. So, but they don't want you to know it, because then you'd make different choices. Once you understand what's really happening, you totally make different choices. So, when shall I get gold? Beginning of the week, stock market starts, or end of the week, stock markets close. Does it matter that much? No, it doesn't really matter that much. Just call us, have that conversation, decide what your goals are, and we'll help you. We'll help you define that if you need help with that. So don't worry about it. And there are no stupid questions. Not here in this space, not when you're talking to our strategy specialists. If you ask them something, you know, they know how to get a hold of me. They know, you know, we work together. So no, it doesn't really matter when you position in, just get it done. And remember, it kind of also depends on what you're buying, because this raw stuff is going to move more with the spot market. This stuff is its own market, because this is a physical only market. So this is where you see the true supply and demand. No, just call us and we'll make it happen for you. And Gloria Curry asks, just a curious question. What happened to... The box of Lorna Doones is right here. But I had some people that, and because, I mean, I wouldn't eat these. They're all crap. Unbleached enriched flour, which is garbage, garbage, garbage. Sugar, soybean, and or canola oil, garbage, garbage. Palm oil, corn flour, high fructose corn syrup, soy lecithin, well, that's okay, cornstarch, artificial flavor. I wouldn't actually eat this. I might eat it if my life absolutely depended on it, but this is totally not what is in part of my diet. But I did grow up hearing "To the Moon on a Lorna Doone," and a lot of people thought that I was making that up. I wasn't making it up. It's like rock and roll hoochie coo. I'm sorry to disappoint you if you thought I made that up. I didn't make that up either. But here's the box of Lorna Doone so that when I say "To the Moon on a Lorna Doone," I can grab it. But when it was visible, some people didn't like that. So I made it less visible, but always within reach. And let's see. And Terrafin asks, in the UK, they charge VAT on silver. Thoughts then on purchasing, as it can be quite costly. Again, Terrafin, the fundamental value of an ounce of silver is not $38 an ounce. Even if they do the VAT tax, and I think that's, they always start out low. All these things start out easy, just like the Social Security, as we're going to start it over here, and then it grows and grows and grows. So I get it, because I think, and please correct me because I'm probably going to be wrong about this, but I think the VAT tax is somewhere between 20 and 25% now, isn't it? And John, you're getting so good at pulling that up. It's awesome. But even that, even if it was double, the true fundamental value of an ounce of silver is somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000. The VAT tax doesn't matter, in my opinion. You do what you want, but I don't think it really matters. And so we'll come back when he finds it. Oh, here we go. He found it. VAT and precious metal, a nuanced approach. Okay, so you need to move the cursor. Thank you. Primarily depending, you didn't do it in England. You just did it in general, right? Because it will vary depending upon where you are. So what's the VAT? Gold is exempt from the VAT tax. Gold, okay, keep going down. Jewelry, 20%, silver 20%. Okay, so I said between 20 and 20. I think it started out at 2.5%, by the way, just a little aside. But yeah, even if it's 20%, that's the important. I don't care what you're doing. What is the true fundamental value of this asset? At some point, it's going to go there. So if you don't know what that is, you can't make an educated choice on that. You can speculate, but we do know what the fundamental value of an ounce of silver is, and it's way below that. But using the taxes are a way to keep people away from it, right? That's why it's important to get it in the global system again, because then it won't be taxed like that. Vicky Palmer asks, Trump stated by the end of next year, everyone on Social Security will be on digital money. Can we convert that into gold or silver? They've got us. That's why you don't wait, because we don't know what that's going to look like by the end of, how much could happen between now and then? Think about this. They want to push this from 125 and actually 2 trillion in like 2.5 years. Will that cover? That won't cover all of the Treasury issuance that they need to do to fund all of this spending. That won't cover it. But I suppose if the states get involved, and if other governments get involved, But I would think that if other governments are going to be involved in this, then they're not just going to go, oh, okay, dollar, here you go. That's the battle that I think is really interesting to see. And so they have you. If you stay everything in the system, and if you're counting on any payments from the government, they're going to want it to their convenience. That's also why you get these things in place now. You do it now. You get a certain level of cash, but the gold and the silver, that's really what puts you in financially the best position. But that local community, got to do it. Got to figure it out. Go to a farmer's market. Go to a community garden. Here we have things called meetups. Find some like-minded people and come together and bring your skill sets. Bring what you have to the table. We've got to do this to sustain sustain some level of control, because they want to take that away from us. And next level 0222 asks about Glint Pay. Have you heard of it? Yep. Andy Schechtman interviewed the CEO and co-founder of it. And I have met him. He's been at XRP. Are you going to do something for that?
I was just going to say if Jason Cousins is his name.
Mm-hmm.
We've chatted with him at XRP in 2024 and again this year.
Yeah, and would you like me to have him on? Because I could probably get the president of Kinesis on as well, because he sits on the board of the Sound Money movement, and I like Jason very much. I mean, he is extraordinarily active, even though he's from Great Britain. He's extraordinarily active in the states legalizing gold and silver as money here. So if you guys want, I'm sure. I think we've got his number. We can call him and do that. So, yeah, and because Glint is redeemable too. I don't remember the amount and whether it's any different than Kinesis, but yeah, I think he's great. And B asked, how much is a coin that says 2235 ounces, I mean a gram? Why would you spend that much money on a coin? Cause it's old? I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking me.
So
but
some people were talking about like ultra rare collectibles and like why you would pay like such a high amount for a collectible if like it is worth its weight in gold. Like what is it about that collectible that when the reset comes, will it be redeemable at that same amount, etc.?
So there are different things. Number one, unless you are a true coin collector, we will never recommend an ultra rare coin. Now, I track them because those that do invest in those, they're very sophisticated, and they would have the ear or the ability to write the laws. That's why I pay attention to that, but that isn't really what we recommend. However, I have done studies on how these coins move through the system. And so where we're talking about layers, we're also talking about layers from raw. Like this to me is my emergency gold. It was minted prior to 1933, so I believe that it has an extra layer of protection should there be an overt confiscation, but it's really going to move with the spot market. So you're absolutely right on that one. Absolutely worth its weight of gold. Now, when you start to get into something more like this, then it's in layers. And these things will run from, you'll see MS, like on this, it says MS63. MS means mint state. So therefore, it has never been in circulation. The new stuff that they create today were not designed to be in circulation. So if you get a new coin that's slabbed, it's just bull, okay? But the old coins that are slabbed, I mean, this, you see me, I hold it in my hand all the time. I can drop it, I can do anything. It's got blemishes all over it. It doesn't matter, it's just about the weight. But it was created to be used in circulation. So if you got a coin that was not put into circulation, in other words, mint state, that's a big deal because there's just not that many of them. And then that number afterwards, this one happens to be 63. That tells you the level of blemish. And those will run between 60 having the most blemishes and 70 being like perfect, no blemishes at all. I believe the highest quality that I personally own is a 68. So that means very few blemishes. 63 has blemishes for sure, because when they were doing this 100 or so years ago, they would throw them in a pouch, they would throw them in a vault. They really weren't thinking about a collectible market. So the question is, why would you spend that much money on a coin? Well, you would do that if you were a collector, just like you would do Van Gogh. Or just like, I mean, this is a piece of glass, right? That's glass. And that's glass. Well, this glass, if I had to guess, is probably, if you went to an antique mall, would be, I don't know, maybe $75 or $65 or I don't know, something like that. I got it at a yard sale or an estate sale. I probably didn't pay more than $5 for it. But that piece, well, that's acid cutback. That's French. That is a finer piece of glass, and probably in today's market, I don't know, maybe there are some dealers out there, you might know this better because I just kind of accumulate. I don't really liquidate them, at least at this point. And that's probably, I don't know, $2,500 or something like that. So it's a lot more rare. I can find lots of these. This is not a big deal. I've never seen another lizard lamp. I do have other acid cutback, so French glass like that. But that's why it's a quality and rarity. And people that have a lot of wealth want things typically that nobody else can have. And so, or they're really, I mean, the history of this stuff is really interesting. This one happens to be minted in 1914, and it's a San Francisco mint, and it has S on there. So, you know, it just has a lot of history to it. Same reason why you would buy a Van Gogh versus, you know, have a Van Gogh versus what your child did in kindergarten with finger paints, right? So there are all different reasons and all different collectors. And these things being more rare move in different ways. It would work kind of like this, okay? There's an auction, and there's 10 people at this auction, and there are 10 of these coins on that table. Everybody wants one, so wherever the bidding opens up, that's what everybody's going to pay. But now you have this, and there's one of them, and all 10 people want it. So whoever's willing to pay the most for it is going to get it, but then you have 9 people that wanted it and didn't get it, so there's more demand for it. Having said all of that, this kind of operates in multiples. I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining this, but it kind of operates in multiples, where this being the easiest kind to get. I can get all of these that I want, no big deal. It's just raw gold. It's going to move with the spot market. But this isn't even that great, really, of a coin. It's not that rare of a coin. It has a reasonable amount of blemishes. It's not a perfect coin, but there could be other 1914 S's that have even fewer blemishes, and there are fewer of those. So, you know, it's just like anything else. If you're familiar with its value, then it's going to run in it. The more rare it is, the more people are willing to pay for it. So those multiples increase. Now, having said that, and I'm sorry if this is really kind of disjointed a bit, but having said that, let's say part of your strategy is to, which should be part of everybody's strategy, frankly, is to convert this at some point when it's appropriate to do it, to convert it into an income producing asset. Well, what would that asset be? It might be real estate. It might be dividend paying stocks. It might be rights. It might be any number of different things. And based upon how those prices in those areas typically operate and how these different categories typically operate, then you would lay this in to get that extra multiple to convert it into that income producing asset. Was that as clear as mud? I don't think I did a good job with that.
I think you did.
You do? What's the feedback? Because that's what counts.
There's nothing coming through about it.
Okay.
There's a question about. There's a question about explaining. I'll just read the question. Can you explain about those special coins in the plastic sets labeled S67, 68, 70?
MS. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, S68, S70 being the highest.
Mm-hmm.
I understood that was to do with the refining of the gold.
Mm-mm.
It is more rare because they are less disfigured. They have a greater purity and first of the smelter, so to speak.
Okay, no. The purity level is the same. The gold content weight is the same in every single coin. That number, 60 to 70, is all about the blemishes. Okay? Mint state, MS, is that it's never been in circulation, even though it has blemishes on it. But the number has nothing to do with the purity. That is all standardized. It's all the same. The numbers have everything to do with the level of blemish. And personally, I've never seen a mint state 70. I mean, I do think some exist. They would probably be in the many millions of dollars because of how rare that would be, since those coins were created to be used in circulation. And I think that is definitely all the time that we have today. So this was great. And I'm always so energized by the time I'm done with this, no matter how I feel going into it. I wasn't bad today going into it. But there are some days where I'm struggling a little bit, and then I come in here and I get to be with you. And that changes everything for me. So I really have to thank you so much. You think you thank me? Guess what? This has to be a win-win, or there's no such thing as a win-lose. In my book, no. This has to be a win-win, and I guarantee you, I get as much or more out of this, of our exchange, than you do. So thank you so much for being here. I know together, let's change the world. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I think we can do it. We certainly can if we don't try, but if we try and we all come together, we can make a positive difference for a lot of people. Let's do that. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.